Growing up in a small suburban town, there wasn't much to do. Riding bikes and street hockey between the occasional car on a dead end street was about as exciting as it got, and if we were lucky, we'd know someone with an above ground pool in their backyard. We'd know someone with an above ground pool in their backyard. For the youngest kids, the only place to play was a small playground in the middle of the playground. It wasn't much, just some swings and a small climbing structure with a slide, the basic minimum effort playground. Next to the playground, there was an old tree on its own. There was nothing particularly special about this tree, but to the kids of the neighborhood, it was significant. This was the toy tree. We called it that because every once in a while, usually after a thunderstorm, there would be toys left under the tree in the morning. I'm not sure how the tradition had started or how long it had been going on, but I know for my whole childhood and for the older kids as well, the toy tree has always been there. When I was around 9 years old, I remember the excitement me and my friends would have every time there was a thunderstorm and waking up at dawn to get there before the other kids to have first dibs on the toys. Sort of like Christmas morning, but in the middle of summer, and the toys were rarely new, but still just exciting. I remember one of these mornings as I ate half a bowl of cereal and then ran down the sidewalk to the playground and saw a couple of the other boys standing around the tree. One of them, a boy named Zach, who is about a year older than me, was holding a Starscream Transformer toy and in the process of turning it into a jet. I overheard his younger brother, Ronnie, whining about how that was his toy and that he wanted it back, and Zach saying that it wasn't his and that he had found it under the toy tree, so it was his. Eventually, Ronnie gave up and ran home, and Zach continued to play with the toy. We all then decided to go ride bikes, and we would go home and then meet back at the park. When we got back, however, Zach wasn't there. We waited for a bit longer and then decided to ride to his house and see what was going on. We knocked on his door and his mom told us he wasn't allowed to come out right now with him screaming and crying in the background, that it wasn't fair. That it wasn't fair. Not sure what it was about, but Zach and Ronnie fought a lot and it really wasn't usual. Not really sure what it was about, but Zach and Ronnie fought a lot and it really wasn't unusual, so we just left to ride bikes around. The streets were full of fallen branches from the storm the night before, which we found fun to swerve around on our bikes. The next morning, we all meet up at the playground again. There wasn't a storm that night, so we didn't check the tree, but I asked Zach what had happened yesterday, and he told me that his parents took the toy he found and gave it to Ronnie, saying it was his and that Zach had taken it from him. This would continue to happen throughout the summer. After every storm, a toy, or sometimes multiple, would be found under the tree. Transformers, Ninja Turtles, superhero figures, Hot Wheels, and even an RC car one time. We would sometimes fight over them, but we always knew that something else would be there the next time that there was a storm, so we learned to let it go. We learned to let it go. On another one of these mornings, we went to the tree. This time I got there first and found a Megatron toy. It was clearly used and some parts were broken, but it was in nice enough condition and it still transformed. Shortly after I got there, two of the other boys, Jason and Michael, showed up on their bikes. They saw that I had gotten the toy and ran over to see what I had. After I showed it to them, we decided to go see if Zach and Ronnie wanted to come out. We rode to their house, and when we got there, we overheard their father yelling at Zach as he angrily closed a window. Zach was screaming back that he didn't do it, but we weren't sure what he was talking about. When we knocked on the door, their mom told us Zach couldn't come out, but that Ronnie could. And soon after, Ronnie came out and got his bike, and we rode around. Zach had been in trouble a lot recently and was probably why he hadn't been able to come outside much. There was another storm a few weeks later, and I remember being so excited that I couldn't sleep. The rain was so loud hitting the side of our house that it sounded like footsteps, and the crack of thunder every few minutes seemed to be getting closer and closer as they rattled the house. Then I hear a very loud crash. It sounded different from the thunder, almost as if it came from inside the house. Curious, I got up and walked to my bedroom door and went into the hallway. I felt a breeze and could hear the rain far more loudly than before. I turned into the bathroom and found where the breeze had been coming from as the window had been smashed open. I saw a large object on the ground in front of the window surrounded by the shimmer of broken glass. I tried to turn on the light, but the power had gone out. I took a few steps closer, but cut my foot on the glass. I jumped back and held my foot, but didn't scream since I didn't want to wake my parents. Assuming they were still asleep, I grabbed a Band-Aid from the bathroom and put it on my foot and shuffled back to my room. The next morning, I walked out of my room and towards the bathroom, careful not to put any pressure on my cut foot. I looked inside and saw my dad knelt down on the floor. I saw the object. It was a large tree branch with a decent amount of blood on the floor. He looked at me, noticing how I was standing, looked down at my foot and saw the Band-Aid. He asked me what happened, and I told him I went to the bathroom last night and cut my foot on the glass. He said that would explain all the blood, and then got up and walked towards me. He sat me down on a chair in the kitchen and took the Band-Aid off my foot. He whipped it off with a disinfectant wipe and then put a new Band-Aid on. Then I rushed to get dressed and went outside to get my bike. I rode down to the playground as fast as I could, and despite my cut foot, I threw my bike down on the grass and ran over to the toy tree. Ronnie was sitting there on the ground under the tree, and Jason and Michael were also standing in front of him. When I got up to them, they said that Ronnie had gotten there first. I asked to see what he had found, and he held up a Four-Arms toy from Ben 10. It was missing one of the hands, which looked like it had been chewed off by a lawnmower. I was confused when I saw it, because I recognized it. It was my toy. Thanks so much for listening, guys. A quick shout out to my patrons: Kevin Kess, Sabiel Eclipse, 055555, Cormac Wells, Amara, Matthew Steiner, Cupcake Hips, Alonzo, Mr. Sankofa, Michael Milburn, Kozak, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Eric Cifuentes, Andreas Anderson London, Lawrence Wallen, Geek Sanctuary, Melissa Perez, and this guy. That is someone's actual username. I love that. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. If there's anything you would like me to pray for, I would love to know how I can be praying for you. I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.